Welcome to the Rational Egoist. I'm your host, Michael Leibowitz, and with us once again is the great objectivist philosopher. He's a professor, he's an author, and he's also one of the founding members of the American Capitalist Party, and he's got a great new book out that he's here to discuss with us today. Andrew Bernstein, welcome back.
Thanks, Michael. It's always a pleasure.
What's with now? It's Andrew Bernstein on your screen. Can you just settle on one thing so I can get used to it? Is it Andy? Is it Andrew Bernstein? What are we doing?
Well, Andrew Bernstein, and Dr. Bernstein for my students. For you, Andy work is your family, Michael. So Andy, you.
Yeah, you recently said you the only job you'd trust me with is running a hot dog cart. Don't think I forgot that either.
Well, a little Brooklyn humor there. But, but no, seriously, I trust you with a lot more than that.
Thank you. So I'm reading the book. I haven't finished it yet, but we're not going to give away the ending anyway, so we're okay. The first thing I got to ask is, you've got so much other stuff. Like I said, you're a philosophy professor. You write books on capitalism. You give lectures. Why a novel?
Oh, well, there's a whole bunch of points here, Michael. I mean, first of all, from the time I was a little kid, what I always wanted to, the thing I always wanted to be was a novelist. And I've written several serious novels, the best of which is Reckoning, which is about, race war comes to America. And it's a brutal story, but it's, colorblind individualism versus racism in different forms. It's a powerful story. But what you'll talk about now is because I've written all these serious books, fiction and nonfiction. And I wanted to write something just for fun. And, and I love hard-boiled detective novels. I love Raymond Chandler, novels about Philip Marlowe and Mickey Spillane's novels about Mike Hammer and Robert Parker's about Spencer, all these tough guys. I wanted to write a tough guy, the detective story. So I created the character of Tony Just, who's a philosophy professor by day and hard-boiled detective by night, and his friend, professional boxer Reggie Hard, who is a really tough guy and has a interesting secret that he's hiding from the world. And then Lisa Flowers, his love interest, who may or may not be trustworthy. We'll find out as the story goes on. And their exploits in taking on bad guys. Red Meat Village is the title. It's not published yet. It's going to be out in the next few days. It's not published yet. But Red Meat Village, referring to Brownsville, the highest crime neighborhood in New York City, where, Elise's close friend has been kidnapped, or she's lost, or she hires Tony to find her. And then the event, then the violence starts, the blood starts to flow, the action picks up. And can Tony find, Destiny Hunter, Lisa's close friend? Can he win Lisa's heart? Lisa's married, after all. And I don't know how trustworthy she is in the first place. So, these are the questions in Red Meat Village. And it's fun. I mean, it's a fun, it's not the serious stuff that has philosophic themes and anything. It's just, can we get the bad guys? Can we win the love of the lady that I love? It's all that fun kind of stuff.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. It's all just fun. Maybe it's not intentional, but I certainly can see your philosophical outlook flowing through the book. So far, anyway. I mean, they're good guys, ultimately. Oh, yeah. Reggie and Tony Justice are heroic. They're heroes.
Absolutely.
And I can't help but think, is Tony Just in any way based on you?
Well, he's a philosophy professor, and grew up in Brooklyn. There's certain similarities, but he's a hard rock. I mean, he enlisted in the U.S. Army after he graduated from high school. His real name was Arturo Manitopoulos. He came out of a Greek family. But he enlisted in the Army. Worked in U.S. Army intelligence for several years. Hung out with the Marines, and went out and deployed against orders, with the Marines, and was involved in firefights and stuff, and trained with them. He's a tough guy. Me, I mean, I'm a devout coward. I mean, I used to run, as a kid in Brooklyn. I used to run from the guys whose last names ended in vowels, It's like Woody Allen said he was on cowering terms with those guys. Yeah, that was about right. So it's a little bit, but not but in this tough guy part, no, that's maybe wishful thinking on my part. That was never me, and is not now.
Well, there is a scene where he's talking about a conversation with a student, and he's asking him basically, how do you make your argument? How do you demonstrate your argument? And the answer was facts. You do it with facts. Now, I don't remember the exact formulation of the question, but the basic
with evidence
was with facts, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's the basis of our philosophy is you start with the evidence. Mm-hmm. That's what matters. What we hope, what we wish, none of that matters. What matters is what the facts are. So you mentioned this.
Yeah, Reggie. Well, Anthony Justice, he changed his name, to Anthony Justice when he was 18 and enlisted in the army. He's a philosophy professor. He's teaching logic, and different philosophy classes. That part of it, yeah, that's me. But the tough guy part, the detective part, no, that's just wishful thinking. That's fiction.
Now, this Reggie, Hard, and the reason you spell it out is because it's got periods between each letter, and they're all capitals.
Like Notorious B.I.G., was a rapper. Yeah. Reggie's a professional fighter, so that's his stage name. That's not his real name.
Yes. Now, he's a professional fighter at a championship level, but he's also got kind of this superhero thing, going on. The thing I find interesting with him is he talks in Ebonics, but he's absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. And how did you come up with the idea for that sort of character? Who he can read and write the Queen's English, maybe it's the King's English now, I don't know, whatever. But very, very bright guy. What's the inspiration behind this character?
That's a good question, Michael. Yeah, Reggie's real name, I don't think it's even given in volume 1. But his real name is Julius Collimore. It'll come out, because I've written the first 3 volumes of the Tony Just saga, and soon to get started on volume 4. By the way, what you were saying before about philosophical, volume 3 takes the hard-boiled detective novel in a direction that I've never seen any writer take it, and it's very philosophical, integrated into the murder, mystery, but very philosophical in volume 3, and Reggie is the center of it. Anyway, black dude from the hood. Brilliant guy. There's a lot of really intelligent people in this universe. He's by far the most brilliant. Tony Just, a philosophy professor. Lisa Flowers, PhD in psychology. They're very, 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 very smart people. Reggie's a genius. But grew up in the hood. You see this gangster man. It's really sad. There's this gangster mentality that education is for the white man. It's for Asians, maybe for black women, but not for the black man. The black man's gangster, right? You see that really sad mentality. And Reggie had to deal with that in the hood. So he was, grew up with being a bookworm, that this was a shameful secret. But he was a tough guy, so he'd fight back against the thugs. And then his father, making matters worse, his father was, one of these bullying macho guys who thought that his son, I won't use the P word, on the air, but his son was a wimp, a bookworm, and he beat him and everything. And at some point, when Reggie was 10 years old, because he's always a big, strong guy, he finally had it, when he punched his father out, But anyhow, so he grew up with this, the secret. So I was creating the character, and it occurred to me, what I was thinking about Reggie when I was creating him. I said, what a great inner conflict that would be for a character who's brilliant and an avid reader and the most brilliant character in this universe of brilliant characters, but who regards his genius as a negative, as a liability, and needs to overcome that. And then he needs to be able to come out of the closet, and stand up for genius, not just for genius, but for intelligence, for education, for developing the mind. So Reggie has an inner conflict here, as well as the outer conflict of having grown up in the hood, gangsters in the projects, killing each other and killing innocent people. And he grew up with a strong sense of justice, that he wanted to protect the innocent. Reggie's like a superhero. He's a genius. He's a physical specimen. He's the best boxer in the world. He's like a superhero character, but he's got this inner conflict. I think that there's everybody who reads the Tony Just loves the character of Reggie. They all love him. And they can empathize with the inner conflict that he goes through.
He's also a very good guy.
Yeah. Oh, he's a good guy, all right. Yeah. He grew up. He saw firsthand. I mean, he had a beaten into him when he was a kid. And no matter how tough you grow up to be, if you're 6, 7, 8 years old, reading books, and the 14-year-old kids, beat the hell out of you, they're twice your size at that age. He had the injustice beaten into him, and he hates it. Some people are bullied and they grow up to be bullies, but other people are bullied and they grow up to hate the bullies and to empathize with the innocent victims. And Reggie 100% empathizes with the innocent victims and wants to protect them from the bad guys.
I got to tell you, it takes chutzpah for a Jewish Brooklyn intellectual to address this issue. It takes guts. I mean, it's not something most white people are willing to address, but I'm well aware of the dynamic you're talking about. When I was incarcerated, guys who were, Hispanic or black guys who would associate with me would accuse me of brainwashing them. They're trying to be white, the whole thing. And one guy, a good friend of mine, and this guy, he could play Reggie hard, actually, in the movie. This guy is huge, real nice guy, smart guy. And he went down to, they called him down to what's called the AP room. That's where you go to get your books and things of that nature. It's admitting and processing. So they called him down there. He goes down, and he had signed up to take college courses. So he was real excited. He comes back. He's got his books. He's real happy. And the guy says to him, "Man, what are you doing? We don't go to college. We're from the projects. We do drugs." And I just remember thinking, like, that's so awful. Like, that's such an awful, like, this guy's trying to better his life. He's studying, he's learning, he's making something of himself, and he's being mocked. The interesting thing is, now that guy, he's out of prison and he's doing well. He has a job, he has the apartment, he's doing well. And another friend of mine, same thing, was mocked, for doing the right thing, for studying, for learning, for being around me. And now he's out, HBO included him in a documentary. He's got his own hair braiding business, very successful. And now some of the very guys who mocked him are reaching out to him. And the guy says to him, "Hey, you should give us some of the spotlight, pass some of that on to me." And he told him, "Look, I don't owe you anything." And I thought it was great. Yeah, you don't. But that dynamic, I think that's great. And I think it's great that you address it here.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, Michael. You see it, this anti-education. Now there's a lot of, blacks growing up in the hood who reject that gangster mentality.
Sure.
Want to get an education. The truth is, this is human. It's not white. It's not Asian. It's not black. This is human. This is for all of us. Ayn Rand establishes brilliantly in Atlas Shrugged that this, our intelligence, our rational intelligence, is mankind's survival value. This is how we learn how to grow crops and cure diseases and build houses and heat them in February, which is a nice thing. It's because we're a very cold winter. Right? This is for all of us. That's the truth. And so Reggie understands that, and he's got to overcome his inner sense of shame so he can reach out, not just in the hood, because he's not a racist, but start in the hood, to reach black kids. And he's soon to be the heavyweight champion of the world, to reach black kids with this, with reading, develop your education. This is his dream, but he's got to overcome his inner sense of shame. Well, Lisa's a psychotherapist, and she's a mixed case in many ways, as you'll see when you finish the book. But she loves Reggie, and she agrees with him. She wants to help him in every way. So Reggie, just think of it, the tough kid from the projects is going to go into psychotherapy to overcome his sense of shame about being a bookworm. How much courage does that take?
More than I think people would understand.
Yes, and for Reggie, much more courage it takes him to get in the ring and fight, heavyweight contenders.
Yeah, I think that it's very underappreciated the courage it takes for people to face their weaknesses, to face their demons, and to overcome them. That takes a lot of guts, because
Oh
that can
yeah,
be scary, you know.
yeah. One example of that, Michael, um, is you see a lot of combat veterans with PTSD. And which is understandable. I mean, thank God. I was 18 in 1969. I could have been drafted and sent to Vietnam, but I wasn't, and I wasn't going to enlist for that war. World War II, yeah, not for Vietnam, but I know a lot of combat vets, World War II vets when I was a kid, Vietnam vets. It's hell. Sherman was right. War is hell, and we got a taste of it on 9/11. War is hell, and so these poor guys, we probably all seen Saving Private Ryan. Those scenes on Omaha Beach. Oh my God,
Oh,
yeah, it's horrible, and it's as realistic as you can make it in a movie. Uh, and so these guys, they're shot, stabbed, they're killing people, their buddies are getting killed, the survivors, they're deeply disturbed by this. How could they not be? They're human beings. I mean, how tough they are, they're human beings. And what's the suicide rate amongst U.S. combat veterans? It's very
I don't know,
high.
but it's high. Yeah.
It's very high. And so some of these guys come back, they had the courage to face machine gun fire, which courage I don't have. Some of them, also have the courage to go into psychotherapy, try and work, with the demons that they have, but some don't. They be turned to alcohol or drugs. It's a different kind of courage. I don't have the courage to charge into machine gun fire, but I do have the courage to go into psychotherapy and face my inner demons. Not everybody does. It takes a different kind of courage. Some do, some don't. But the suicide rate indicates that not everybody does, or it's just so difficult to deal with those inner wounds that psychotherapy may not, with a really experienced practitioner, may not be enough.
Now, there's three characters that I find there's a sort of an interesting, maybe not a trichotomy, an interesting continuum, right? So you have Reggie Hard, who he grew up in the projects, and he,
as it comes out, it will come out eventually, was a gang leader, in his youth, but he was sickened by the violence against the innocent, and so he left that.
So he's made a success. Then you also have two other characters. You have Stevie Savage, who was a gangbanger when he was a kid, and now he's an attorney. And then you also have, and I don't know how it's going to turn out, but where it is right now, you have the character Chill, who is cool as they come. He's a bright kid. He's also a killer. And you get the sense that he really has the potential to get out of that, and maybe even the drive. And that really illustrates the idea of free will, of human choice, of the self-made soul, I guess. Was that intentional that you had so many, or at least three of those types of characters?
Well, the intentional part is this is a tough guy story, so we need tough guys. Stevie Savage, a white guy, Irish kid who grew up. It'll turn out he grew up in a wealthy family in Gramercy Park, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in New York City. But it bored him. He wanted to be out on the streets, and he becomes a drug dealer for Terrence Muldoon, who heads the Irish mob at Hell's Kitchen, who are a real gangster. You're a bad guy. And he meets Lisa. He's 21, she's 17 when he's dealing drugs in Riverside Park, because she's also comes from wealth, from the Upper West Side. Her father's a history professor at Columbia. He's a tough guy, but at some point he has enough of the gang. At least earlier has enough of the gangster life. But Stevie later, that's not his real name. He also changed his name, but has enough of the gangster life. He's able to buy you off Muldoon. All the money he saved as a drug dealer. He pays it all to Muldoon with his sacred word to keep his mouth shut, which he does because he knows he'll be aced in a New York second if he opens it, and he's able to buy his way out of the Irish mob. He's a tough guy, and he's a corporate lawyer now. He's married to Sarah, who you'll meet later on in the story. Who Tony, when he meets her, thinks the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. She's a hard rock defense attorney. She's not a street fighter, but she's a tough defense attorney. But grew up in a poor Jewish family in the Bronx. But you'll meet Sarah later on in volume 1. Chill, James Robinson, black kid in Red Meat Village in Brownsville, drug dealer. Yeah, he wants to be mayor of New York City. He's not kidding when he says that. That's his dream. But he's in two worlds. So mostly he's in the gangster world. Now, can he get out? Part of the question is, can he get out? Tony thinks he can. Reggie thinks he can. Can he get out of the gangster life? No, but he's a murderer, like you said. The good news regarding his two murder victims is they were both gangsters. And he says at some point later on the story, he said, I'm not preying on innocence. And he's telling the truth. He has not. So that's, he's still a murderer, but he's the guys he's killed are real bad guys, not any, innocent victims. So James Robinson or Chill, the question is, can he get out of the gangster life? So yeah, you're right. It really raises the question of free will. Can human beings turn their lives around? Can they, people have, and by the way, go back to the dynamic you were talking about before, because I depict Reggie as this, this black kid from the hood who's picked on by the bullies who think, education's, not for the black man. Leftists are going to accuse me of being a racist. I get it. Yeah, but I got 2 words in response to them, and it ain't Merry Christmas.
You? Can I say
it? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. One thing I've done that they may or may not have done is I've read the true crime literature. And I'm not just about black criminals in our day, in the projects, but about white criminals in the United States, in England, the Irish, the poor Irish came, in the 19th century, Gail Wyman kind of character from The Fountainhead, those kind of gangs. I'll tell you the truth, Michael. The Gangs in New York, that Scorsese film, was based loosely on a book by that name, Herbert Asbury, I think. I read it. It's the worst stuff I've ever read, worse than the projects today. These white guys. But anyway, the projects today, how many, one really good book on that is, what's the name of it? It'll come to me, and Sex, Money, Murder. How's that for, because that's the name of the real life drug gang in the projects in the Bronx in the, circa 1990, Sex, Money, Murder. Oh, and it fits the stereotype. Dad's in prison. And this is true life. Mom's on drugs. The kid joins the gang at age 12 because there's no structure at home. He not only want money, but he wants a father. And the 18-year-old kids will protect them until they get killed by other gangs. So this is real life. That's just what Sex, Money, Murder is just one, the true crime books that I'd recommend to people to show. What Reggie has gone through is not fiction, sadly. It's often in the projects, it's often real life, and it's not limited to blacks in the projects. There's a lot of, poor white kids in the United States and in England, too, who grow up in under similar circumstances and, and turn to crime. So it's a sad, and almost uniformly, Michael, they reject education. They just reject it. The girls often recognize that's the way up and out. Boys too often reject it. Remember, one last point on this. Great film, Stand and Deliver, which is one we could do in our film series. You remember Stand and Deliver?
I've not seen it. I know it's Edward James Olmos, right? Is the teacher. I believe, what's his name's in it? Lou Diamond Phillips is in the movie as well,
and the Lou Diamond Phillips character, they're in El Barrio, the Chicano kids and the street gangs and everything. And he asks for, he's a really smart kid. He asks for 2 sets of textbooks. And why do you need 2? One for home and one for school, so I don't have to be seen carrying books on the street, because the violence that will then rain down on me. So this stuff is real. It's very sad. It's tragic. It's heartbreaking. Let me get one last point on this. For years, I used to go into Queens Vocational High School to lecture to the kids on Ayn Rand. It was an objectivist teacher there. Most of the kids, some of the kids were white, many were black, some were Asian, some were Latino. Doesn't matter to me. But I always talk to them about this. This is for human beings. Don't listen to anybody telling you that this isn't for blacks or whatever. This is for all of us. And the librarian, I still remember her name, very attractive woman, black woman. Always loved. She said, "Oh, thank you, Dr. Bernstein, for coming. These kids need to hear this." And I said, "Yeah, I'm very happy. I'm very happy to do it. All that intelligence, we're egoists, right? So the rational egoists. So first and foremost, all that intelligence in the kid's own life, to better the kid's own life, like you were saying about your friend. But secondarily, all that intelligence that could benefit, human beings more broadly. This kid, smart kid, going to get killed by gangsters or get seduced into the gang, could go to medical school and be an MD, and God knows how many patients' lives he saves. So it's a win-win when people embrace their minds.
When you mentioned Chill, and he says he doesn't prey on innocence, it's we only kill gangsters. I'm reminded of the Hollywood, the actor George Raft was friends with Benny Siegel. And
he was a gangster, right?
Yeah, and Benny Siegel told him, "Look, I've personally killed
Benny
12
Siegel
people."
or Bugsy Siegel.
Don't call him Bugsy, dude.
He didn't like that.
No, he did not.
But that's who you're talking about, right?
Yeah, Benny Siegel's his real name. He did not want to be called Bugsy, but
all right.
So he tells George Raft, he said, "Listen, I've personally killed 12 people, but you don't have to worry about it. We only kill each other." And that's what
gangsters.
Yeah, and that's what that line reminds me of, is this Chill, and it makes it more intriguing, right? Because he's not going and robbing old ladies. He's not shooting up schoolyards. And of course, then the question arises, well, aren't the gangsters, they're humans too? Yes, they are. They're also humans that would kill Chill if they had the opportunity. So it just makes for a very nuanced character that you have in Chill, and I think that's great.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. But like Benny Siegel said, we kill each other. That's good insofar as it goes. But even so, innocent people get caught in the crossfire.
Sure. In real life, yes, and that's the the risk.
Yeah, Thomas Sowell talks about today. When he was born 1930, so he's going to be 95 this year. God bless him. Still has all his marbles, from what I could tell. So God bless him. He's written a lot of great books, as you know.
Yeah.
When he was a kid growing up in Harlem, he said, there was very little violence. The crime rate was much lower and everything. Today, in the projects, he points out parents often put babies to bed in the bathtub because stray bullets coming in through the windows might otherwise, hit them and kill them. So
that's awful.
So it's like a combat zone. What did the cops in Chicago call some of the projects? They call it Chirac. It's a combat zone. So innocent people get caught in the crossfire, and of course sometimes gangsters do prey on innocent people.
Sure, more often than not.
Yeah, protection racket for one. One.
Yeah. So I take it you've never seen the movie Bugsy, but I got to tell you, I think I think you're going to like this line from the movie. Warren Beatty played Benjamin Siegel. So he's looking at Virginia Hill, who at the time is dating Joey Adonis, another gangster. And Bugsy's friend tells him, he says, "Hey, Benny, come on, no broad's worth a bullet between the eyes." And Benny says, "Well, that depends. What broad and whose eyes?"
It's gangster mentality. Now, Benny Siegel was one of the guys who founded Las Vegas, right?
Yes, Pink Flamingo. Absolutely. Yes. So I got to ask you, do you enjoy the creative aspect of creating this world of Tony Just and creating all these characters? How does that compare to writing, say, the Capitalist Manifesto?
Writing fiction, to me, is more difficult than writing nonfiction, because in nonfiction, you need to have the evidence, like the Capitalist Manifesto. I had to do the research, history of capitalism, and everything. But you do the research and you have the evidence, and then you have a logical structure for the writing, and then you do the writing. Now the analog in fiction is you got to have a plot, and you also got to know what you're writing about. For instance, so I did all this research, read all this true crime literature, a number of books on true crime today as well as in the past. But you got to develop characters, and there's no analog for that in nonfiction. You got to create characters who are compelling, who are alive, and there's a saying that philosophers make lousy novelists. And I think there's some exception. Ayn Rand's a gigantic exception to that. Well, she's a novelist first, foremost, and always. But, philosophers make lousy novelists. And I think that's generally true. And the reason is they're writing themes, not plots. They're writing about ideas, not about characters. And so their characters often become just spokesmen or mouthpieces for various intellectual theories that they endorse or oppose. And the challenge for being a novelist, for anybody who wants to be a novelist, is developing characters who are flesh and blood, who are alive. They may stand for intellectual theories, but they have to act them out, not just talk about it. They have to be alive. They have to be bursting with vitality. And that's a challenge that you don't get in nonfiction. So yeah, it's more challenging to write fiction, but at the same time, it's fiction. You're like God. You get to create your own universe, and you can make your universe the way you freaking want. I want heroes. It's like a universe filled with heroes. And then you got to have real bad guys who can stand up to the heroes and make it challenging. So you got really, really bad guys. The drug cartel is in volume 1. The Russian mafia in volume 2. Real bad guys. That you got to sink your teeth into. And what I really want to do moving forward with Tony Just, Michael, is I want to create some memorable villains. Like Professor Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes. I want some real villains, some real towering villains that Tony and his team could go against. So that's what I'm working on now. Come up with some great villains, some real bad. What would the Fountainhead be without Ellsworth Toohey, right? Or Othello without Iago? Sherlock Holmes without Professor Moriarty. You gotta have a villain worthy of the hero. That's what I'm working on. Now I love it. You get to create your own universe. It's just so much fun. It's hard, but it's a lot of fun.
Who do you think the main villain is in Les Miserables?
Well, it's easy to say Javert, but he's not. He's an antagonist, but he's not a bad guy. He's just. Thénardier is a villain. So, but
yes, that's what I was. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, he's a really bad guy, and his wife is probably worse.
Yeah,
those two. Javert is a honest man who's presented by Hugo as misguided. He's got man's law at the epitome, and Jean Valjean stands for God's law above man's law, which is part of the theme of the novel. What a great book. But the Thénardiers are really bad people.
Yeah, they're awful.
Oh, God. And that poor Cosette,
yeah.
God, yeah. She's brought up by it. It's horrible. On Victor Hugo showing us real child abuse, in that part of the story.
Yeah,
I cry my eyes out when Fantine dies, take care of my daughter. Oh, God. No matter how many times I read the book, see the movie, whatever, I just sob.
Oh, my God. You're such a softie.
I am. I'm a
You're
big
romantic.
One woman described me once as a big mush. and she was right.
Now, you said that the book is not going to be out for a few days. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to release this episode until the book is out, and you can give me a link that I can put up with the episode so that the people can order the book.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. For anybody who likes tough guy detective fiction, I think they'll find that this is fun, and the action picks up the deeper you get into the story. I want to give away anything because there's a big plot twist coming.
Don't do that, because I'm going to get aggravated. I'm reading it and I'm enjoying it, and I don't want anything. You already kind of tipped me off with this Lisa Flowers. I thought she's all good so far, and now I'm all concerned.
Well, but the hints are there. Tony, there's a lot of good about Lisa. You can see why Tony loves it, but the hints are there when he's trying to get information from her, and he's thinking, she's not telling. Is she telling me the truth? I don't think she's telling me the full truth. Can I trust her? I'm not so sure about it. Tony's smart. He's picking up some. As much as he loves her, in fact, she even says at some point, "Wow," he's grilling her for information. She goes, "Wow, even love doesn't stop Tony Just from becoming a hard ass. You know, so you got to tell me the truth. You tell her, you got, you know. So we,
All right.
we shall see.
So where can people find you?
Well, AndrewBernstein.net is my website. AndrewBernstein.net. TonyJust.net is now up and running. You know, the website for the Tony Just saga, even though the first volume won't be out for another couple of days. Today's what, February 21st. The website is up. The book will be out in a few days. So TonyJust.net. Of course, on Facebook. We can always argue about Trump and everything on Facebook, but I'm getting tired of that, by the way. Politics is important, obviously, because it affects our lives, but it's not my first love. Literature, philosophy, history, I love much more than politics, so I doubt I'm going to be arguing much more on Facebook about politics. But you know, Facebook for sure, Twitter, LinkedIn. So, yeah, I'm not hard to find. AndrewBernstein.net website. TonyJust.net for the Tony Just series.
Maybe they'll find you at my hot dog cart too, if I ever get that hot
well,
dog
I like
cart.
hot dogs, and if you, you know, I'll go to Nathan's. And in fact, we should go to Nathan's, the original Nathan's down in Coney Island sometime together, Michael. Maybe when
yes, for sure.
Once a little warmer. Today, I don't know, it's 20-something degrees and the wind is blowing. A little chilly to be down in Coney Island. You know,
I've been to the city a few times now, and I've not yet gone to Coney Island, but I'm dying to.
Well, don't die. Let's set up a day and time. We can meet at Grand Central, you know. And or do you drive into the city? Do you take the train?
I've done both. I prefer to drive. I actually have a spot where you can park for free. You have to walk, you know what I mean? It's
well, look, if you want to go to Brooklyn, that's where I grew up.
I walked the Brooklyn Bridge recently.
Excellent. You know, you could drive down to where I am, and we drive in the Brooklyn together. Get hot dogs at Nathan's at Coney Island, and there's a place in Brooklyn that has the best view of the New York City skyline. You know, that there is, and a lot of people don't know about it, but it's absolutely stunning. And you know, and then we could go there. And
I think I was there.
The Brooklyn Heights Promenade.
Yep, that's exactly where it is. Yeah, it is gorgeous. You look up, you got the Brooklyn Bridge to your right. Mm-hmm. Over to the left, I think I saw the Statue of Liberty, and then straight across, you just see the Manhattan skyline.
It's stunning, and most people don't know about it. You know, people come to New York and they don't want to leave. You know, on vacation, and they don't want to leave Manhattan. I said, well, go to Brooklyn. He said, I don't want to go to Brooklyn. I said, all right, you know, you're missing the best view of Lower Manhattan that there is.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, Professor Bernstein, Dr. Bernstein, thank you so much for being with us again. And of course, you'll be back soon as we go over yet another movie. Yes.
Well, thanks for having me on, Michael, and especially to discuss my baby, you know, Red Meat Village and the Tony Just saga. So always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For now, this is the Rational Egoist signing out. I'm Michael Leibowitz. Till next time.